It's me, and I'm back. What's up guys? Back at it again with another video. So today will be another shoe review, and it's another Nike, I guess. Yeah, it's another Nike. It really does look like I'm a fanboy. But yes, we're talking about another Nike shoe that I copped probably around a year ago, like March of last year. And this is a shoe that was part of pretty much Nike's overuse, I would say, of the Vapormax sole and just putting it on a bunch of different models. But I would argue this particular model was probably the only acceptable hybrid I saw out of all the hybrids that Nike decided to drop. You have like the Air Max 95, which looked hideous, and you also had the Air Max 97, which looked even worse actually. But this particular hybrid I found was actually not that bad looking. So I ended up copying one of the original colorways, or at least one of the earliest colorways that came out when the shoe first dropped. And as you've probably seen, we are today talking about the Air Vapormax Plus in the Obsidian colorway. So, with the intro out of the way, I guess we should just look at it's another red box, but we'll have to look through it anyway. We'll get it quick. It's red, it's normal, it's got standard paper, it's also got standard stuffing paper as well, and nothing else. This wasn't any sort of special edition or anything, so pretty standard affair. And on the label, it reads Air Vapormax Plus, and like we said, it's in the Obsidian colorway. And when I picked these up, I paid retail price for this. So these retailed for 280 Australian dollars. I'll put the conversion here. And for this particular colorway, I never saw this one go on sale, but for a lot of the newer colorways that started coming out, a lot of them ended up on deep discount. A story I should mention, I was at the outlets in Australia at one point, probably about a few months ago. I saw the rainbow and the grape colorway at the outlet, and they were selling them for, I think it was $110 per pair. So you can find other colorways on deep discount, so it should give you an idea of like the general demand and the reception of this shoe. But enough rambling, I'll throw this box to the side and we'll get onto the shoes now. All the paper just went everywhere. I realized the box opened as I threw it. Christ almighty. Anyway, onto the main star of the show. As per usual, we have the Air Vapormax Plus in the Obsidian colorway. So the main feature of this particular silhouette is that marriage between the Vapormax bottom and the Air Max Plus upper. But unlike some of the other Fusion models that came out later, specifically like the 95 and the 97, where they directly they just took the upper and slapped it straight onto a Vapormax sole. They've changed the upper on this one a little bit with the usage of like this neoprene and the removal of like some of the veins in the front and moving the swoosh around. As well as actually adding a layer of foam between the Vapormax bubbles and the upper itself. And one cool detail I do really enjoy is the changing of the classic TN branding to VM Air. And it's sort of a nice way of nodding towards the original logo, as well as updating it to make it relevant to the cushioning tech you're working with. And speaking of cushioning, we've got our very tried and true, I guess it's tried and true now, it's been a while, but we've got our tried and true Vapormax air bubbles. So Vapormax is kind of like the ultimate evolution of Air Max, so just highly compressed air. But unlike most air shoes where you've got like foam surrounding the air capsule, or you've got foam pillars that support the air, this actually has no sort of foam or additional material, you know, surrounding the air bubbles. You've just got the air bubbles in direct contact with the floor with a couple of rubber overlays in key areas. But unlike the regular Vapormax, we've actually got a layer of foam between the air bubbles and the upper itself. So your foot is actually sitting on the foam, which is sitting on top of the Vapormax air bubbles. Now, in terms of sizing, I will say these shoes definitely fit small. I tried these on in a 9.5 and I found the width was too tight and my toe was actually poking through the mesh height-wise, not lengthwise, because the toe guard is far enough away, but because of how shallow it becomes, it's more shallow than a regular TN. My toe was actually poking through the neoprene, so I actually ended up buying these in a size 10, and at that size, the width was good and the length was great. My toe wasn't poking through or anything. So I would say if you are planning to buy these, go up half a size. Now, in terms of overall comfort, I will say the bottom half is more comfortable in my opinion than a regular Vapormax. With regular Vapormaxes, your feet kind of sit on like a stiff platform, which that platform is on top of the Vapormax bubbles. So your foot doesn't necessarily sink into anything, it just kind of springs on top of a harder platform that is on top of these, air bubbles. But with this, you've actually got this nice foam where your foot sinks in, so you get the added benefit of like a soft foam that your foot can sort of rest in, as well as the springiness from the Vapormax bubbles when you start, say, running or walking fast. So I would say the bottom is quite good, and the top is also quite nice as well. Because of this sort of stretchy neoprene that they're using, it's actually got a decent flex to it. It's not that stiff, and the only thing I would say is it gets a little bit hot, but aside from that, upper and bottom feels great. Let's make sure this thing's still filming, because I actually filmed this already once and I found out it stopped filming halfway through. Anyway, and now we move on to the part where I tell you how I feel about the shoe. I aesthetically think it looks quite good. I know a lot of people in Australia kind of see this as a sacrilegious shoe. Like, it's kind of taking the TN and just ruining it in every way possible. And I understand that. Like, I don't particularly like the removal of the veins here, or the fact that the swoosh has been moved here instead of being here. And generally, I just don't really love the changes that they made to the TN upper. However, I will say it makes more sense on something that looks more futuristic on the bottom, because that was a problem I had with the 95s and the 97s. You had these very classic retro shoes that you've gotten accustomed to seeing in a very particular way, suddenly just being thrown onto this futuristic looking, mouth guard per se. So the fact that they updated the upper as well kind of makes it all tie in together pretty well in my opinion. This is not saying that I think this is better than a regular TN, because it absolutely isn't. In terms of looks, I think comfort-wise, yes, it's better than, retro Air Maxes, but that's to be expected. But overall, I do think aesthetically it's quite a nice shoe. The fade is pretty, decent. You've got like a sort of darker purple here, and it fades to a nice sort of sky blue here. But I would also just say that it's a bit of a strange one, to be honest. A nice bonus about this shoe actually is because you've got a layer of foam as well as the Vapormax bubbles, this shoe actually gives you a lot of extra height. So for any of my short guys out there, you can wear this and it'll immediately make you 6 feet. Like, it doesn't matter if you're 5 foot, this will make you 6 foot. Because that's how height works. But one thing I wanted to quickly mention was my pair actually came with a pretty bizarre factory defect. I'm gonna have to show you what it looks like on my foot. But basically, the left shoe's tongue, I think, has been sewn almost 0.5 centimeter too high. So along the toe, you've got these reflectors, and the reflectors continue on the tongue as well. And the reflectors are supposed to line up with the gaps between the laces. But on my left shoe, because of that movement, the reflectors actually line up where the laces cross over. And on my right shoe is completely fine. So what ends up happening is that the reflectors are visible on my right shoe but covered on my left shoe, and it just looks, it's such a small detail, but it's so obvious because of the bright 3M reflectors. But aside from that, like, the construction was fine, but I will say that was a huge thing. But I just didn't want to deal with returning this shoe and, you know, waiting and all that other stuff that comes along with having to get a exchange or a return. So I just stuck with it. And with that, we've come to the end of another video. I'd love to hear your opinions about this particular shoe and colorway. And also, I'd actually be interested to hear, aside from the classic Vapormaxes, what is your favorite Vapormax sole shoe per se? Like, that can include this, can include the 95s, the 97s, even like the Vapormax Utility, I would even say, is another one. Just basically anything that isn't the flagship regular Vapormax. What is your favorite? Like the video if you like the video, dislike the video if you dislike the video. And now, time for the on-feet portion of this particular shoe. And we are going to use the usual music. Dun, 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 dun. Dun, 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 dun.